All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. John Oberg, who is in Austin, Texas. How are you doing, John?
Doing well. How are you?
Yeah, and John is the founder, CEO, board director, advisor, professor, investor, trusted by organizations to navigate growth, conflict, and change. You founded two healthcare innovators, Sedera and Prasina Health. You have been on advisory boards, and you have helped, and you've patents as well. And you have helped a lot of companies navigate change, change, conflict, and growth trajectories. And that's what we want to really talk about today. Is um, let's talk about organizational growth. I mean, you founded two companies, right?
Yep.
What were some of the pitfalls you experienced during periods of rapid growth, and what did you learn from them that you were able to parlay to other people subsequently?
Change is hard, and I think that there's lots of stages of companies, and sometimes people much more famous than me said, "What got you here won't necessarily get you there," and
Hmm.
so I think knowing that change is the only constant is an important thing for a founder and for a CEO to remember, and keeping your eye on the goal, like what's the outcome that we're trying to get to, and what does it take to get there, and those are hard things when subconsciously sometimes we battle the desire to stay the same, and so that doesn't always help us. And so I think getting really clear about that and having open, transparent conversations, and sometimes that means helping people grow through change, which in some cases means letting people come into and then exiting out of the conversation.
Hmm.
And I find that to be most helpful today by helping people on the way in, but also helping them on the way out in as humane a way as possible.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, again, if you need to have everybody aligned, you need to have the right team in place, all of that. And sometimes it's like, I often liken it to football, which soccer I'm talking about, not American football, but where they have in soccer, like in most countries, they have divisions, right? And
Yeah.
if you end up at the bottom of your division, you go down to the one below and the ones come up. But what often happens is when teams get promoted to the higher divisions, they'll sell off half their players because those players were good enough to get them out of that division, but they're not good enough to help them stay in the higher one. And
And I think when it's really well done, when that happens, you help the players that
yeah,
are moving on find the right next team, right? And
exactly.
whatever that looks like. And so you want to help them find the best fit. And so there was a time in my career where I was very transactional in nature and I didn't help people through that.
Mhm.
I was really interested in what they could do while they worked for my
Right.
company. And that was short-sighted. I found much more success over the last, 20 or so years by helping people regardless of what it meant for me, and in such, I think I've grown a reputation now for, like, I'm gonna help you whether we're working together or not. I genuinely wanna help you find what you want to have happen next for you, and sometimes it doesn't work out exactly the way we want, but how can I help you get connected to that next opportunity, that next thing, so that I'm also helping you along your way? People
Mm.
generally like that.
No, absolutely. And then as part of this process, obviously that's trust building, and you need to build trust and authentic relationships with the people, especially when you're going through periods of rapid change. How do you ensure that you can maintain that when, let's face it, rapid change can suddenly, people can get distracted in all directions and kind of lose sight maybe of those relationships. Maybe they start to change themselves, their own personality or whatever. How do you manage to control, if you like that, or be aware of what's happening during rapid change?
It's a great question. I think the more rapid the change and the more stress on a system, the shorter the focus needs to be.
Hmm.
And so, we talk about cones of uncertainty. And when you're talking about a 5-year plan, we don't spend a whole lot of time being super specific. We spend a lot of time being super specific about the next 90 days. And the faster the change, the shorter that time period becomes, right? And then
Hmm.
even when you get to a point where an employee is in crisis, like let's say something really bad has happened in their life, then we might even get to, like, what's going to happen the next 15 or 20 minutes. And so I've dealt with people that have had cancer diagnoses or
Right.
unexpected death in the family, and so then what we do is we help management get them to, like, hey, when you're back to work, at the appropriate time, how do you get into it 15 minutes at a time, and then 15 minutes becomes 30 minutes, and 30 minutes becomes an hour, and a half a day, and a day, and then back to your regular rhythms. But the kind of the higher the stress of the situation, the
Mhm.
shorter the focus of certainty.
Yeah, and then there's another thing that you probably come across quite regularly, and that's when there are periods of growth and change. Sometimes people would say, "Oh, the company used to be like this, but we've changed, we've grown. Now it's kind of gone all corporatey, or it's gone this, or it's gone that." How do you help people ensure that they understand, first of all, what their core values are, what their who they are as an organization, and who they want to be, and managed if that is an evolution, or if there are core things that you really want to hold on to, that they stay central and they don't get diluted by change?
Yeah, I think that the company needs to be clear about its core values, and
Hmm.
management needs to make sure that it's willing to live those core values out. Helpful if people also know what their values are. And then I think there are some people who do really well in large corporate jobs, and there are some people that do really well in small startup companies,
Yeah.
and they're not all the same. And so I think, some people would say it's highly risky to work for a big company. Other people would say it's highly risky to start a company. And I
Hmm.
think that depends on your perspective and what you're wired to do. So the better you understand what your strengths are. Back to your football analogy, a striker is going to play great as a striker, not
Yeah.
very well as a defender, and horribly probably as a goalkeeper. And so, best to put someone in the right position on the field and keep them in that position or as close to it as it makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, most strikers make horrible defenders. In fact, they're better off you don't even have them
I was a
back.
striker, so I get that.
Yeah,
I own that.
yeah. Yeah, and I was a defender, so all I used to know how to do is stop strikers. That was the sum total of my skill. Um, and as you're navigating all of this, obviously a change and growth and things, there's a lot of different personalities and people react differently in different situations. You put a lot of emphasis on empathy and mutual care, but I feel sometimes that people don't totally understand what that means. Sometimes people think empathy is they confuse it with sympathy. They think they just like
Mm.
relate with people and, oh, I'm being empathetic. But empathy and mutual care doesn't doesn't avoid the tough conversations or facing the realities, does it?
No, quite the opposite. I would say that,
Mhm,
we teach people that you separate someone's identity from the job that they're doing.
mhm,
And if I could say to you, like, if you worked for me and I said, hey, as a human being, you're intrinsically valuable. As a worker, though, that those two
mhm.
things don't go together,
Yeah.
meaning that if your work is good or not good, you're still valuable as a person. So let's talk about the work. And we get into very kind of pointed conversations around the work, and it's like, hey, look, I really think that you're intrinsically valuable, but the work itself didn't go well. You see
Mhm.
this done really well in like healthcare and the military. The military has after action reports, and you have morbidity and mortality meetings with the healthcare, where people can very honestly look at mistakes in blameless scenarios, and call out like what really happened. And when you separate the activity from the person, you can have much tougher conversations without the emotion of feeling like your character is being assassinated. And so that's a cultural issue, though. That's something a leader needs to do. And they need to talk about it all the time, not just in times of difficult conversations,
Mhm.
but also in times of good work that someone's doing. So if I said to you, like, great work today, you are awesome, I've just pulled out that two-edged sword, because then if you're
Right.
not doing awesome, like, it's just, so I've got to make sure that I'm always pointing out my care for you as a person in spite of good or bad circumstances. Activity can be managed. I don't want to talk about the person's being.
Mm. I mean, I feel today sometimes like people have become very conflict averse, right? They try to shy away from it because they don't understand it, they don't understand how to handle it. But I think most of all is they don't understand how conflict can lead to change, to opportunities, to breakthrough thinking, if handled in the right way.
Yeah, I think that, if you think about like no conflict in a relationship, in a marriage, for example, no conflict early in a marriage, like zero conflict, is a real precursor to divorce.
Mm.
And so I think that there has to be an understanding of what healthy conflict looks like and what unhealthy conflict looks like. And so creating a culture, I'll give you a great example. In my company at Prosina, the other day we had conflict in a meeting, and I was a little flustered, and I started moving in a direction, and someone pointed out that I was flustered clearly and needed to slow down to let everyone keep up with me. And so that was, I felt really good. And I positively reinforced, like, hey, that you can stand up to me in the room as the CEO and get me on track too helps all of us. So let's realign to the goal. And then we're all aimed at the goal together. So it wasn't just me owning the goal, it was the whole team owning the goal. And they helped me, slow down to move everyone together when I was clearly kind of needed to be slowed down. Like that, it was the right
Mhm.
call. And so we all help each other in that way. It's mutual accountability.
Yeah. And
But
how
they
do
didn't
you
get in trouble for that.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you coach or help leaders understand that? Because a lot of people would be that would be a difficult thing for a leader, maybe a difficult situation. You know, if somebody called you out in a meeting and said, "Oh, you're getting flustered," whatever. How do you help leaders be able to accept that and leverage that as a positive thing?
I think one of the most important things is having a real comfort with what you're good at and what you're not good at, and
Hmm.
then getting really good at surrounding yourself with people and letting them be the expert where they're the expert. And that's really important that everyone has their job to do. And so if you trust in that, you can both be the leader and you can look to them for guidance to get better at what you do. And I think we share a martial arts background. And
Yeah.
when I
Mhm.
was training in martial arts, I tell people all the time, I've learned as much from white belts as I have from black belts by the way they do things that are so wholly unexpected.
Mhm. Yeah,
That,
yeah.
and that's a great learning experience. And so I would hope that leaders learn that they can learn from anybody, not just from their mentors, but also from people they're mentoring or they're leading.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. And we do share martial arts background, and it is something I think what martial arts does teach you that regardless of where you are on your martial arts journey, there's always people fit, faster, stronger, more flexible, good at this, good at that. And as you say, they may be somebody who started 6 months ago. They just may have a natural ability for something, or as you said, they may surprise you like, oh, I wasn't really expecting that. Um, but I think the essence at the end of the day is to be comfortable where you are and the fact that I'm getting better than I was last. So competing against yourself, and I think that's a good lesson for leaders is to be comfortable where you are and then to say, okay, other people have other attributes that I can leverage, and there's no way I can't be the expert in everything. Those days are gone. Never really existed, but we used to kind of presume our
Yeah.
leaders always knew everything.
Well, the funny part is the best at anything always have people around them helping them, right? So if
Mhm,
you talk about the best musicians, they have the most coaching. The best
mhm,
actors have the most coaching. The best athletes have the most coaching. Like if you want to be the pinnacle of any career, you have the most people helping you out. And so I think I heard at one point, I've never validated, but like 70% of Fortune 500 CEOs have an executive coach, and they also
mhm.
have mentors, and they've got a board of directors. And so there, I think if you want to be exceptional at what you do, you need people helping you to get better and sharpening you all the time.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in that. As I tell people on this podcast, I've leveraged coaches in the past at times, different junctures of my career, and one of the thing that's kind of funny is I feel people don't invest in themselves, John. They always wait
Yeah.
around for somebody to invest in them, and I think at the time when I used executive coaches, on paper it looked really expensive, and I was like, but looking back, it was a steal.
Well, and I think that, for people that don't believe in that, my guidance to them would be go mentor three people who are 10 years behind you and
Mhm.
start looking for three people to mentor you 10 years ahead of you, where there is no financial relationship, where
Right.
you're only giving for the sake of giving. And
Mhm.
then as a mentor, you're like, I met someone, last week, and they offered to help me. And I'm usually in the one providing the help. And it was really uncomfortable. I was really candid with them, like, I'm not used to this. And so
Right.
they're like, hey, well, this is my turn to give. And it's so I think if you're always looking for a way to pay it forward, like if you're not comfortable with executive coaching, start with a mentoring relationship and just go find three people 10 years behind you and just find a way to pour into them. And then a mentor will show up for you, and try to get
Mhm.
three people mentoring you in some way, shape, or form. And then you'll see that value very quickly. And then when you do decide that you want to invest in that type of coaching relationship, you'll know what to do to make that investment
Right.
pay off and make it worth it.
No, absolutely. And then talk to me a little bit about resilience and because I mean the past one today, everything is changing so fast that and there things are coming so dramatically at people that I feel like resilience in leadership has become even more important. As I said, I mean we the things are so complicated. We don't have the expertise. We got to find people. We got to take all these inputs, but eventually, you got to make some decisions. There's an awful lot of pressure on leaders now. How do you advise them in how to build good resilience?
I think resilience is a skill set. So step one,
Mhm.
recognize that you have to work at it. And we all have an energy reserve, and part of that's genetic, part of it is the skill of managing your energy, then part of it's just practicing it like you lift weights.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing with resilience and with energy and just the emotional energy you have each day. So take good care of yourself in terms of like getting sleep. But stress is one of the things that really knocks down resilience. And so I
Mhm.
teach executives like to make a list of all the major stressors, all the minor stressors, and then to write down why it's stressing them and what they can do about it. And anything they can't actually act on, to just put it aside for a moment and to work on all the smallest stressors to kind of get them off their plate so that you don't have those energy vampires grabbing at them every single day. And that then gives them more reserves to work on the bigger problems. And it gives them that sense of control that usually feels good. And then I challenge executives to recognize there's only two things you control: your thoughts and your actions.
Yeah.
Everything else is an illusion. And so
Mhm.
once you kind of put those things together and you shorten the field into that 15-minute window and you start knocking stressors down, you really do have more energy to be resilient for the bigger, harder problems. And then you can start engaging multiple people in solving those problems where it's appropriate. And it becomes just a much better kind of process. And the last thing I tell people is don't isolate yourself. Like
Mhm.
isolation is a real problem today. So get the right people involved in solving the problem.
Yeah, no, those are really good points. And like you said, isolation, because I mean, a lot of people work remote and stuff today, so it's much easier to not just mentally but physically isolate. You mentioned stress, and I do think it's something that is funny. I mean, I came to the States in the mid '90s during the dot-com era, and working has been working in corporate America and stuff and startups and stuff ever since. We celebrate, I mean, my experience here over the years has been that we celebrate stress and we wear stress like a badge of honor. And it's, if you're not totally stressed, then people are going, wow, you
Yeah.
mustn't be doing anything. How do we change that mindset? Because I looking back now, I just think it's very destructive.
Yeah, I think you have to separate stress into two. There's two types of stress, and we
Hmm.
don't talk about this often enough. There's distress, which is what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and there's eustress, EU stress. And so eustress is the type of stress you put on your muscles when you're lifting weights to
Right.
gain better weight. Distress is what happens when you break your leg because you
Hmm.
did something, to your leg. And so I think that people should focus on where they can have more eustress to get stronger in the places where they want more resilience, and they should recognize when going through distress is a part of a process and when it should be avoided. And I think that's a big part of it, is to make sure that we don't avoid eustress. and
Right.
and for my children, I tell them, like, comfort's not the goal.
Hmm.
Like finding the most comfortable path is appropriate at times, but it's not the goal. Like, the
Right.
goal is lifelong learning. The goal is to make a positive impact on society. And so that's the goal. And so um we're designed to work. Work causes you stress. Humans biologically are designed to work. So the avoidance of stress shouldn't be the thing. Recognizing what's healthy and unhealthy stress, that's really, really important. And then knowing that you're going to have to go through some unhealthy stress, and limiting that and taking it in bite-sized pieces, that's important too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's interesting. It's interesting there what you said is, I mean, I think that's a really important point about recognizing the different types of stress and where stress is a positive thing and where it's a negative thing. Because I think what's been celebrated in the past has been the negative, even though people,
That's
because
right.
people don't recognize it. And so I guess underpinning all of this, John, for leaders is self-awareness, right? And I feel like that is the thing that people struggle with most, and that's what I have seen hold people back from fantastic careers and opportunities, is a lack of self-awareness. Unfortunately, it's something that you tend, I mean, I don't know, maybe there are people who develop it when they're younger, but I can only, my own experience, I wish I had had a lot more self-awareness earlier in my career and life. But talk to me just a little bit about self-awareness.
I think the Johari window, I think, is one of the most famous concepts in self-awareness, and that's where you and other people have this kind of quadranted box where, you know, you and I both know the things that I've talked to you about me,
Mhm.
and then things that I won't share with you that are hidden from you, and there's things you observe about me that you don't share with me because I may not be ready to hear them. And then there's the things that neither one of us know about each other. And so if we recognize that that's just true of humanity, then we recognize there's a lot of power in putting things into the box between the two of us so we can both talk about that in a way that's just honest, and that'll help me to move forward. I used to try to manage people's perceptions when I was early in my career, and the only person's perception that I was managing was my own. Like,
Right.
everybody else knew, but I was unwilling to kind of, like,
Mhm.
acknowledge that they knew. But that was the joke, and it came out in a 360 review where a psychologist was doing this 360, and he's like, "They know this about you, you know it about you, and you're pretending like they don't, and you're trying to manage it, and the joke's on you." And
Right.
that was such a watershed moment for me, like, "Oh, people can see my warts even when I try to hide them, so what if I was just vulnerable about them?" And then what you find is that vulnerability leads to a lot of power in relationships and a lot of trust. And
Mhm.
so I think that when people get comfortable in their own weakness, not to say like you wanna show up weak or you wanna show up, like
Yeah.
I said to someone once, "Don't mistake my kindness for weakness." That's
Yep.
not those aren't the same thing. Um, but I think just being really honest about it, you can get more help, you can bring
Mhm.
people around you. People see it anyway. So it's not like you're hiding things in most cases. And I think
Mhm.
the best people, they want to share those. And I think it's smart to only share those things with people who are going to help you, right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying you want to wear it like a badge on your sleeve to the whole world. You want to share it with the people who can help you through it and who you know are going to hold those things closely to them. They're not going to weaponize them back against you.
Yeah, yeah, no, because I do think the vulnerability thing has become. I think it's another one where people don't fully understand it, and they think, "Oh, vulnerable, I should just like reveal everything about myself." And you're going, "No,
No,
that's not what you want to do." And
it's
I mean,
gross.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So just quickly, define vulnerability in this context.
Yeah, vulnerability is the ability to share with someone the appropriate information about
Mhm.
yourself, and there's layers of vulnerability.
Yes.
And so if we've just met each other, there's an appropriate layer of vulnerability. There's another layer if we've known each other for some time.
Mhm.
And so now, and again, when you work in clinical therapy, there's a different level of vulnerability, and
Sure. Yeah.
that's something different. But when someone gets really comfortable going through therapy with their therapist, dumping that on the person they just met at the bar the next night, not appropriate, or the person they just met at work, not appropriate. And so I think you have to know how to navigate those layers of like professional intimacy, right? And you don't want to go too far. You
Yeah.
can't unring that bell. And so I think I would just caution people, like, opinions today get us in trouble more than they have in the past.
For
And
sure.
so I try to tell people, like, be more delicate. Like, I want to have strong beliefs that are loosely held. Meaning
Mm,
that if I get new information that informs me to have a better opinion, then I should be smart enough to do that. I
yeah.
shouldn't be a sycophant toward a particular ideology. I should actually learn and grow. And so that vulnerability means, okay, I believe something because of a certain set of facts that I have. New information will cause me to reevaluate that. And then I can, you know, reevaluate and then say, okay, I'll change my opinion, or I'll change.
Mhm.
And the second thing I would say is, you know, um, handling feelings, like processing those with somebody else who's not a therapist, who's not your close
Mhm.
friend, who's like there for you to verbally like, just don't do it. Like, you got to process emotions on your own, then share those emotions after they've been processed. When
Yes.
we talk about sharing emotions, we don't mean process them with the, that's abusive, like,
Yeah.
in
Who
air
needs
quotes,
that?
not clinically abusive, but like, just don't do it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I think those are just some, like the sound bites I would give you around appropriate vulnerability.
Yeah, no, those are great because I do hear it. It's thrown around so much, and I've seen examples of where people have just thrown caution to the wind, and they've just suddenly, I mean, almost overnight, turn up the next day as a completely different person, oversharing, and it's just like people just are gone. Whoa,
Well, so
that's it.
funny story about that. I
Mhm.
was I was with a group of men who were in a group setting at a professional development seminar being run by a clinical therapist who gave us the green light to be vulnerable. And so I opened up, and I opened all the way up, and he
Mhm.
stopped me in front of the whole group. He's like, "Whoop, too far." And he pulled me aside one on one later, and he's like, "Hey man, that's too much." I was like, "You literally said open
Yeah,
book for
yeah.
everything. I did that. You're a clinical therapist in a safe place." He's like, "I didn't mean that much." And that was a real me. It's like, oh, got it. Like, even I mind there's layers to the onion, and we just have to,
Yeah.
and for my guidance to people, take one little step to a layer, then one more little step, and then just see where it, That way, if
Mhm.
you do overstep, you only overstep a little by a layer,
Yeah.
not the way that I did, where I thought it was a safe place. And I think we both learned from it. He and I both.
Yeah, perfect. No, that was great. Great piece of advice. Well, listen, Dr. John, this has been fantastic. All of Dr. John's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Yeah, so I work with Brasina Health, which is taking type 2 diabetes into remission globally. And I run a podcast, talesofabundance.com, where we tell stories of hope, growth, and just generally good news. So talesofabundance.com, Brasina.com. I really appreciate you having me here. So much fun to chat about these things.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'd encourage you to go check it out and check out the podcast. Hey, we need lots more. We need good news. We need more good stories, and people realize that maybe the world is a better place than it's being portrayed as right now. All right. Well, listen, thanks again, John. Thank you for watching and listening. And I will see you all again very soon. Thank you.